Hello my beautiful friends and welcome back to my channel. So friends, as you can all probably tell by the title of this video, today we are going to be talking all things red flags in dating / relationships. And how this video kind of came about is because I put up a poll thing on Instagram asking you guys if you had any questions about relationships in general, that I'm going to be doing like a whole video talking all things relationships. And the amount of questions that included asking, red flags. And I was like, jeez, this is a problem. Like, this needs to be a whole goddamn video, because so many of you guys were asking what are the main red flags to look out for. And this is something I myself could have done with going back a few years ago. And had I have known the red flags per se, I think I could have saved myself a lot of pain and a lot of heartache. And so I wanted to properly cover this subject and not just have it as like a 1 or 2 minute answer in like a Q&A about relationships kind of thing, because it seems like a lot of you guys are struggling, and I was struggling as well a few years ago. So let's do it. Let's do this. Let's talk all things red flags. Come on, let's go. So in my own opinion and my personal experience, I think red flags apply to all genders. So yes, I just want to say that to start this off. Okay, so we're going to dive into red flag numero 1. The first red flag I would say, and this is a huge one, is if you find yourself justifying their bad behavior. So if you know yourself that something they're doing is so wrong or so out of order or so out of line, but you still find yourself being like, oh, but they're only like this way because of Y or X or Z, or they're only doing that because this happened to them, but they're only being like treating that person like this because this person treated them like that. If you're always like justifying their bad behavior and like justifying what they say and do with something else, even though you know in your gut it's wrong, that is such a huge red flag. Do you know, if you're so mad about somebody or you're so crazy about somebody and you will literally justify anything and everything they do to make your perception of them and your views of them align, if that makes sense. So like, if you're convincing yourself of how good of a person this is and how good they are in this area, yeah, they might not be in this area but they are in this one. If you're just like always convincing yourself of this person, our minds tend to work overtime to convince us of someone who's not good for us, even though our gut knows it. So even when you're doing this, you will still have that really bad gut feeling that this is not right and this is not how it should be. So a second huge red flag in my opinion would be if somebody is constantly testing your boundaries. Now this is huge, and I've had people do this to me before, and you can be very in denial when you're so crazy about somebody, you know what I mean? So just say you've set boundaries, it could be anything. So for example, if you have insisted that you don't want to go further sexually but they keep pushing you, if you have said like you're busy on a Thursday but they're pushing you to see them and making you feel guilty for that, if you aren't ready for them to meet your family and friends for whatever reason, they keep pushing at you and like, being like, why, and basically just anything. If you've set any boundary and you've like made it very clear how you feel about a certain situation, and this person will keep just going against you and pushing at you, that is a huge red flag. When you set a boundary and you make something very clear to somebody, they should respect that, and they like should never ever try and go against you. So I feel like if somebody does that, like, you literally need to run a mile, because if somebody's doing that so early on in dating or so early on in your relationship, that is only going to get worse, and like that shows that that person really doesn't have a lot of respect for you. So the third red flag in my opinion would be if somebody is extremely overly critical about their previous partners or their previous relationships. Now I think this in itself just says everything, because how somebody acts in a previous relationship or previous whatever, they're tend to likely to do it again. Like, they tend to act the same way and have the same behaviors and all this. If somebody is always putting someone down who they were previously in a relationship with, when you think about it, like at the start of that, they obviously like adored this person and would have done anything for this person and would have spoke so highly about this person. But as soon as it's over, it's all like, pointing the finger. It was them. It just shows that they're unable to take responsibility for their own wrongdoings and their own actions in the relationship. relationship, and it also shows that they've not learned anything from the relationship. I also feel like when you really listen to how somebody describes and talks about previous relationships and previous partners, it's a huge example of how they're likely to treat you and talk about you in the future, and especially if anything ever went wrong, you know what I mean? It also is a huge sign of them basically being like, you know, I did nothing wrong in that relationship, that was all them, so it's basically up to you to make this relationship work because I'm a perfect human being and I don't do anything wrong. No. Like, fair enough, you know, there are going to be circumstances where, you know, people have been cheated on or betrayed or lied to, and of course people can express that to you and like express how hurt that made them feel or whatever. But, you know, there's a difference in like kind of explaining how something happened, but then just completely bashing and just talking nastily about a person, you know what I mean? So I would say the fourth red flag would be if somebody feels a huge sense of entitlement. So basically, if somebody feels entitled for you doing more for them than they would do for you. So if this person just constantly takes and takes from you but doesn't give the same amount back, that is a huge red flag, because somebody who does that is very happy with using you and is just very happy with, you know, not reciprocating what you're giving them. And that says a lot. Like, if somebody, you know, just say for example, if you ask somebody for help and they're like, oh yeah, I'll get to that, or I'll do that later, or whatever it may be, but they never actually get to that, or they never actually do it later, or they're like, I'm actually too tired, or just say like, you know, you're asking somebody for help because you've had a very long day, you're exhausted, you're stressed, there's a lot going on, and they're just like, I'm too busy, but they're always too busy. But it's not a sense of they're too busy, they just don't want to reciprocate what you do for them. I personally have seen this happen a lot in relationships in my life, with friends, with family. You know, it always tends to be like this selfish person who's very happy with having their needs constantly met. And, you know, people who are like this, they really could not care for you or care for your well-being or care about anything, because at the end of the day, all they care about is themselves, and that says it all by feeling entitled. It just shows where their thought process is. At the end of the day, it's always back to me. So in my opinion, I'd say the next red flag would be if everything always comes back to this person and everything is always about them. So just say everyday life, conversations, whatever it may be, if everything always ends up coming back to this person, that shows a huge sign of manipulation from their side. So just say per se, you know, they've done or said something to hurt you and you try to, you know, go to them and talk about it and express how you're feeling, they'll always use that to flip back on you. So just say, example, you were out with a group of friends and you were like, it really hurt me when you said this in front of all our friends. They will then use that and be like, yeah, well, you done this and said this. Hadn't you have done this, I wouldn't have said that. So they'll always flip it back to you. They'll never be able to take responsibility for where and when they went wrong. They can never see that. Like, these people tend to be very narcissistic. So, you know, I'd say that's a huge sign. Also, a lot of the time in these situations, I would say that, you know, by the end of the conversation, you know, they'll point the finger of everything you've done to hurt or upset them, but you'll come out of it feeling guilty and bad and like you shouldn't have brought that up because you were actually in the wrong. Like, these people will be such good manipulators that they will actually convince you that you were in the wrong and you were the one to hurt them and upset them, when that really was not the case at all. And that just shows you how toxic these people are. So I would say red flag number 6 would be if you cannot stand their friends. There is this saying or like study or whatever it is done, but it's basically saying that you are a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you do not like their friends, the chances are that you really don't even know this person yet, because, you know, if they're close friends, you know, and you're a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with, the chances are that they are a lot more alike their friends than you even realize. And I also feel like, you know, if you don't like their friends, that is nearly something that your gut is telling you, because, you know, your friends and family are so important, especially in a dating or relationship environment. Like, for you to get on with somebody's friends and family is very important. So if you don't like somebody's friends from the get-go, there is a reason for that. And I would not be involving myself in that situation, girlfriend. So I would say red flag number 7 would be if they don't talk through issues or their unwillingness to talk through issues. You know, all couples have disagreements. It's so normal and so healthy, and if you're not having disagreements, then there is something goddamn wrong, because it's extremely normal. But it's how you handle and deal with those disagreements which is really going to make or break a relationship. You know, does your partner, when you're having a disagreement, walk away, shout at you, shut down, throw a tantrum, like break things, put all the blame on you? All these things are huge red flags. You know, you need to be able to communicate with your partner. Like, communication is the most important thing in a relationship, and you need to be able to sit down with your partner and be able to express how you feel, and for them to be able to see your viewpoint and vice versa. It's not about a win or lose situation. Like, you guys should be able to hear each other out, listen, understand what you may have done wrong, accept that, you know, be aware to learn from that and try not to let that happen again, and vice versa. You know what I mean? So if someone just won't, or is refusing to talk through things, and just, you know, has really bad coping mechanisms when something goes wrong and there is a disagreement, that is a huge red flag. And that is only going to get worse as time progresses, because if you think about it, you know, even in the early stages, the first few months, year, whatever it may be, like, just think about if you're with this person like for a long time, like, that is only going to get 10 times worse. So I would say, in my opinion, they would be like the 7 main red flags from my experience per se. Now, there are a lot more, and a lot more that I know of, but, you know, a lot of them are ones that are talked about a lot, like, you know, being rude to waiters, like, not getting on with their family, like, things that are very obvious per se. But I feel like they would be more so things that wouldn't be as obvious. Well, definitely things that I wasn't aware of going back a few years ago, and things that I definitely, had I known these things, I could have definitely prevented myself from a lot of pain and heartbreak. So yes, I really hope that helped you guys. Please do let me know if you would like me to do more videos like this in the future, as I would love to. So yes, thank you guys so very much for watching. I love you all so extremely much, and I cannot wait to see you all in my next video. Mwah. Bye bye, friends.